Hello, everybody. It is Friday the 13th, December the 13th, 2024. How appropriate. You're here with your host, Jason, on Friday the 13th. Coming to you live on Rumble, KGRA, Digital Broadcasting, and several other streaming outlets, I'm sure, is bringing us live. But tonight's going to be really a lot of fun. It's going to be with Tegan Broadwater. He's a friend of mine. And I think that you're going to be really interested in what he has to say. And it's good to be here. I've missed the last couple of weeks. And so I've missed my loyal viewers who I've seen are in the house. Phyllis and Terry and several others are actually tuning in right now. And we appreciate you. It's the holiday season. You can see Mrs. White's tree that she has put up behind me. And that's something that we really enjoy. And we have that going on. It's been a busy time. Over the last week, I'd spent some time down in Orange Beach, Alabama, and I was down there actually with the Spice King, Doug Satchery, with Satchery Spice. And throw that up, Amanda. There you go. He's my buddy. And Doug was gracious enough to have us down there. And not only was he there, but there was a lead singer of a band called Framing the Red. And that's Jordan Newman, who I actually got to meet. He's the guy on the far right. And cool guy. I wasn't familiar with the band. And so I got to hang out with him and learned that he's opened for Motley Crue. And he played he's played in Sturgis. He's played in Danny Coker's place in Las Vegas. He's played for the last 12 years, and he's good enough to where he doesn't have to do anything other than play music. That's his website. The reason why I'm mentioning him is because actually when Tina and I had gotten into the car to drive back from Orange Beach, we started just listening to his songs and we were like, holy cow, this guy's good. Really good. And he happens to be a super fan of, he's actually a super fan of Elvis, but really the band that he really was inspired by was Lynyrd Skynyrd. And he told me, he goes, hey man, on your way home, run by the crash site of Lynyrd Skynyrd. And that's in Mississippi, in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi, actually. And so, we actually stopped there and we checked out the monument and stuff. And throw that up, Amanda, if you can find that. We actually checked out the monument there, and it's kind of a somber place. It's out in the middle of nowhere, but something I'd seen on documentaries before. So I was glad I actually had an opportunity to stop and check it out and sign the guest book, etc. But like I said, if you get a chance, check out Framing the Red and check them out, and check them out on Spotify. I think you're going to be, I learned a lot about the music industry and so forth. And Tegan, the guy that's coming on here shortly, he actually, he went to college for music and dove into that. He had dreams of becoming a rock star. So, but he's a super guy. He really is. And let's just get into it. I want to get into it, and I want to talk to him and I'm going to start out with talking about Tegan Broadwater. He's a CEO, a musician, entrepreneur. He's a podcast host, a philanthropist, and author of a book called Life in the Fishbowl. And Tegan's unique experience in business, music, and rare, deep undercover work ignited a passion for contributing to positive social change. His contributions manifest in his newest creative company, Uncommon Souls, which purposely inspires conversations between different people about important issues such as systemic racism, police and community relations, and criminal reciprocity experienced by boys without fathers. And he actually just started a business, and I'll have him talk a little bit about that, but it's a business that he's working, I think, out of LA. I know he's got an office in LA. And so just a super guy, and I think you're actually going to enjoy it. I was on his podcast a couple of years ago. I think it was a couple of years ago. I had like 2 hours of sleep from a murder that I had been working, and I wasn't going to let him down. So we actually sat down and talked, and we ended up talking for like an hour and a half. And it's one of the best podcasts that I've been a part of. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. And I got to meet him and his wife, Holly. And Holly is just a sweet lady, and it was just good to meet the both of them, and I consider them friends from here on, and I thought he'd be a perfect guest. So let's bring Tegan on. Welcome, my friend.
Pleasure to be here, sir.
It is an honor. It is an honor for you to come on here. He spent 13 years with the Fort Worth Police Department. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. 13.
And I told him the last time that we had talked that I'd actually applied for the Fort Worth Police Department as well. And the biggest mistake they ever made was not to hire me. But
Yes, I agree.
so Tegan's been on Cops. He's been on some episodes of Cops, and like I said, he wrote this book called Into the Fishbowl, and that's what I really want to talk about is in your journey on the Fort Worth Police Department. Kind of tell me how you started there, why you ended up joining that police department, and what your journey was to get to that point in the undercover world.
To put it simply, I was a musician by profession, as you mentioned, and it started to touring and all that kind of stuff started really grating on my nerves. I loved playing and writing music, but I didn't like sharing a day's in with 5 other dudes in an 87 Suburban and trying to bring folks into a cokehead owned bar in Oklahoma City. I mean, it was just not the type of life that I wanted. I loved music, but so one of the bands I had a following of a number of cops. And in 95, I had my son, and that was just another reason why I thought, man, it's time for me to be actually present. And who knows, maybe even make a couple of steady bucks. And so I had no idea what to do, though. Since from the 4th grade, I was going to be a musician. I was on this trajectory. I went to University of North Texas. I went through their jazz program, studied music, and then was touring and doing the thing. So I had no idea what to do after that, leaving the music industry. So these cops started putting the idea in my head about police work. And I thought, man, sounds kind of exciting. I started kind of thinking about it and thought about the diverse relationships and experiences that I had through the music industry, where the vast majority of bands that I played with, I was the minority in the band, so I had lots of great cultural experiences with different folks, and particularly in the Black community, rehearsing in the 3rd Ward down in Houston, and, as a teenager, and, not even realizing I was in a dangerous place. Mm-hmm. They were very accommodating people. I knew nothing else than the fact that. So I decided to do just that. So I grew up and went to high school in Houston. But I had moved to go to North Texas and study music. So I lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, primarily in Fort Worth, because there were a few, they used to have these things called music stores. And as my day gig, I used to teach lessons in 3 different music stores around the Fort Worth area. So when I decided to jump ship and try to do this police work thing, first thing I did was cut all my hair off and go get a new picture on my license. And then I applied in the 2 places that I was most familiar with, Houston and Fort Worth. And Fort Worth was the quickest to the draw. And I was fortunate to get in and take the civil service test and get in my first shot. And it was, from there, I was the greenest cop there was, but I feel like I brought with it a lot of empathy and experience in different cultures than most white stiffs do when they come onto a police department.
So while there, I mean, everybody starts out in a police car. And so when you started out doing that, of course, you obviously you showed them a really good propensity. You showed them that you had some talent to be able to do the work. So what was your progression as far as specialty units?
My progression what I really wanted to do was work undercover from the jump. So what I did was I was assigned to a pretty bad part of town, but I put in to transfer immediately to the worst part of town so that I could just gain experience with high crime areas. And it's usually a socioeconomically disadvantaged part of town, obviously. So it just gave me a lot of experience understanding what went on in those types of places. And they had an old weed and seed grant that had gone defunct. And I talked to some of the guys about my aspirations to do buys and actually make some kind of an impact. And there was just, it was a target rich environment. So I wrote up an IOC, a letter, sent it up the chain to a captain via my sergeant and said, look, I want to learn how to do warrants. I'll get certified through the SWAT team. I have so-and-so is going to show me how to do this and that and the other. and we're just going to do like the Weed and Seed grant did, which was tackle a lot of the little podunk little crack houses that the narc didn't really mess with because they were seeking bigger and better hits. So, but it was still impactful because obviously, even if you're busting down a door and you're, pulling 10, 20 grams of crack out of some place, there's usually something else to learn about in terms of, crime or repeat offenders and things like that. So I started doing that and was lucky enough to be assigned within my patrol unit to the extent that most of the shift I would drive around and do either covered buys with an informant, and then eventually started growing the balls to try to do a few things on my own, very small time things, and then write the search warrant, get it signed, and then at the end of our shift at 10 p.m., our guys would gear up in SWAT gear, and I'd go to the drawing board, tell them who's on the stick, how we're going to go tackle these, take these houses down, and we'd earn overtime and go run warrants and hit licks there. So it gave me the experience to where on the fourth time that I put in for narcotics, I finally made it in because, who wants a 6'1" white stiff when they're trying to bust into these neighborhoods? So my whole point was, look, I can get in these neighborhoods. I'm already doing this. I already have X number of informants work. I already have this much experience doing these buys. And, by then I'd already run almost 500 search warrants by that time. So, so it was narcotics at that point that I got into, and then eventually went to the gang unit. But the gang unit I was only assigned there because of the Fishbowl operation, which we haven't gotten into. So in terms of the trajectory, it was narcotics and gang. And then at the very end of my career, the cold case unit. So
that's awesome. So I noticed a lot of parallels between you and I, as far as just kind of, I listened to a couple of your other podcasts that you'd been on, and when you tell a story about back in the day when you would get stopped and you have the long hair and you got your band equipment and where you're maybe hooked up and stuck in the back of a police car while they're searching your car. Well, I had the same thing happen to me. I mean, I was what was yours, like a 78 Caprice or something? Mine was a 70. Mine was a 75 Nova, and it was like, get out of the car, handcuffed, stuck in the back of their police car. There was no, hey, do you mind if I search? It was, they were searching. And I had long hair, and so I could relate when you were talking about that. And so, and then of course your career path also, I did work undercover for a couple of years and I enjoyed it. I think it was different than the undercover work that you actually did, Tegan, because with you, to me, for us, we were doing buys and we were doing buy busts and we were doing buys and letting them walk and identifying them and maybe getting an arrest warrant 3 years later, 2 or 3 years later to where they wouldn't know it. But I did some buys in motel rooms and stuff that they just don't do anymore, but it sounds to me like you and I it took me multiple times to get into several units, so I can relate to that as well. And I think, and I'm going to attribute that that you're not one of those that kisses up to anybody, because I didn't, and that's probably one of the reasons that I did that I had to work for it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So my point is that, and I'm getting to it. My point is that it sounds to me like your life working undercover was a lot more involved on a daily basis, where you were out there continuing on with that relationship building and meeting up with these guys. And you talked about playing video games with these guys and stuff. That's a lot more involved than anything I ever did. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah. So, once I made it into the narcotics unit, I had all these targets kind of lined up that I knew were Crips, and we were starting to knock down some doors there. And I was kind of putting together a little conspiratorial list. And then at some point, the crime had gotten so bad in one centralized area that we deemed the Fishbowl, it was a little 6 square block area, that the city council and the chief of police said, hey, we've got to do something. So they started throwing money and resources at doing buy busts and jump outs. Nobody could get a good buy bust. Every warrant that we served down there was hitting empty houses, nobody there, somebody's been tipped off, et cetera. And that's when I just had the idea of like, man, this is my opportunity. I'd really like to just get in there and work a deep cover operation. Let's get in there and blow this thing from the inside out. I brought it up to an informant of mine that I knew because I had a sneaky way that I was going to initiate that whole process. And he laughed his ass off when I explained it to him, because again, these are Black Crips in a significantly dangerous part of town, the dangerous part of the dangerous part of town. And I wanted to go in and infiltrate Crips looking like this, so everybody thought that was hilarious. And I brought it to my sergeant as well, gave him my list of targets, where they'd been, who they're connected with, the fact that, this guy's uncle lives in Compton, and they're bringing people back there, and they're learning the trade, and they're bringing people, they're really making a significant impact, and we're not making any progress any other way. So ultimately what happened was my sergeant kind of shielded me from the gold badges and allowed me to start going out and making these buys. And what I had to do, honestly, was use patrolmen that I used to know, a couple of them in particular, since a lot of people, nobody really knew what I was doing, even the other guys in the narc unit other than my sergeant. So I'd call in a couple of bros to just stand by several blocks away and connect on a phone line. And if I had a panic, then I would say an operative word, and they'd come, drive the car through the front of the house. But nobody had time during those periods or I didn't have time to call in and say, this guy's got, 6 keys coming in from Waco and blah, blah, blah. I got to move this stuff. And then, it's 2 a.m. I'm not going to be able to call a team of 6 people, go get wired up, just like in the movies, tape and microphones. It's ridiculous. Logistics to have to go through, and then all these people parking within a block. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I just started working off the books and started doing every single day, to the extent that when I didn't have any money, because you're starting on a narcotics unit budget, which is not much in any municipality, and I was spending thousands and thousands of dollars on these samples with these guys. And my sergeant was just covering my butt because I kept telling him, look, I've connected this and this and this. I bought hand to hand. I'm making hand to hand deals. And it got to the point where after about 3 months, bad guys were introducing me to other bad guys. It wasn't a matter of needing an informant for anything at that point. I mean, these guys were all trusting me because I was out there all the time. And yeah, being so limited on resources, I would just go out there. When I knew somebody was not going to be there, I would drive around down there and ask for them. Say, hey, where's B? And they say, oh man, he's not here, but what can I do for you? Or I'd bring a pack of 4-pack. They used to come in 4-pack of Magnums, those 40-ounce malt liquors, and share them and sit and play video games with these guys, because the guy that I was trying to connect with wasn't there, and it gave me opportunity to not spend money, but still make connections to the people and learn via the conversations that were going on more about their operations. So it turned in, well, I told my wife, and I told her it would be 3 months. And so she was willing to let me do that, but it ended up going 18 months before I could get my butt out of there.
Now I can tell you from my experience, probably my best teacher was a Black female. She still calls me to this day. She was an informant for me, and she just goes, "Come on, baby, I'm going to show you how to buy crack, and I'm going to teach you how to do this." And she did, man. And she, like I said, I just talked to her probably about a month ago, and she'll still call me just to check in on me. But she was the best. It's like, that's a hard thing. Did you get taught by anybody that were cops, or was it just kind of on fly by the seat of your pants, and you're just kind of learning the way, how to do it? You're kind of locked up, so I don't know if it kind of froze on you. There you go. You're good now. So did you kind of have cops that really they kind of took you aside and guided you through it? Because I know for me, man, it wasn't a lot of that. It was a little bit of it. I can't say it was all just the criminal element that was teaching me, but
yeah, it was interesting because the guys that were successful in our narc unit were Hispanic and were bilingual, and they did some buys, but they could set up all kinds of stuff on the phone and were taking down, big loads on the freeways and stuff and hitting all these big licks without having to do anything as remarkable. Everybody will tell you something. I did have a partner when I came in who was fairly experienced at buying some stuff, but nobody was really experienced at doing anything long-term because, since basically the 70s and early 80s, nobody was allowed to do that. It's just, there's too much risk and too much liability for the department.
Right.
So a lot of it was just me. I'm glad I had the experience of failing at buying dime rocks of crack when I was working the weed and seed and patrol, because that's kind of where you cut your teeth. That's where you get to fail and look like a dork trying to buy dope and get turned down and then try to figure out, how to be smooth. The rest of it for me was, by the time I got into the Fishbowl operation, was just a matter of saying, if I myself as Tegan actually decided I want to get in with these gangs and start moving kilos of dope and make me some money, how would I do it? Instead of saying I have this massive alter persona and I have to memorize all these things, or I have to have a dirty car, or I have to whatever, I just said, everything that I would do is what I'm going to do. And, the lingo even was, I try to get so far into the lingo that it sounded contrived, or, I'm a dork. You don't have the right to come in there and start throwing slang around or whatever. You just look like a fool. So I just said, look, if I were really going to do this and I had this sociopathic element in me, which I don't, obviously, then that's how my personality went. And I think that was the best way to do it. And that's why I think I leveraged relationships and I got to know some of these folks quite intimately over time and gained a lot of trust.
Did you ever have any moments that you were really, it was really sketchy and you were, fear is your friend. I tell people that all the time. Did you ever have those moments where you're like, oh, this is not good? And maybe you did.
Yes. No, I did. The opening scene in the book is one of them where, I was walking up to the front door of this guy's house the first time I'd been invited to actually go to his house. And I had an informant with me. Because the whole ruse was I was buying for him so that, I didn't have, it was kind of just a way to look like I'm trying not to touch the stuff, you hand it to him and it made me look like I'm taking control of the situation, when you and I both know that if I'm going to ask for him to do this and then he's going to pay him and I watch him make the transaction on my behalf, that it's still just as incriminating, but it makes me look more like a professional. Only this time my jackass, informant brought somebody with him who was a big Los Zetas guy and was fleeing law enforcement. And I at that time I was just flying by the seat of my pants, to be honest with you. So I was allowing things to happen that I probably shouldn't have, maybe a little extra confidence or something. But the dude that answered the door was not the guy I was there to see. And he pulled a shotgun and stuck it through the burglar bar door. He opens the interior door and then sticks the shotgun out and is screaming like he's sweating, like he's on something, because people don't do business at this cat's house, let alone a white dude with a posse, So that was the first thing. And I'm on this little stoop, it's this old 50s clapboard house with the burglar bars and no this dim light and everything. So I'm thinking, man, if I was by myself, I could make a tactical decision here, but I've got people standing right here with me, and this guy's got a shotgun. So I'm running all these scenarios through my mind about, what I'm going to have to do and sidestep and this and that. But I keep thinking, man, anything I do is going to put them in a perilous scenario. So, eventually my guy comes to the door and pulls the gun down and starts cussing him out and everything, pulls him, lets me in like we're there to have tea. And then as soon as he does, the fact that he was talking down to the Hispanic guy that was with us, the Hispanic guy pulled a pistol from his pants that I didn't know he had. Again, my bad. And ran this dude against the wall and shoved the gun in his mouth and started screaming in Spanish. And so here I am, off the books. I got a patrolman like 6 blocks away, probably wondering what the hell's going on. He's hearing all this Spanish, and I stand on the shotgun that he dropped, because he dropped the shotgun when he got forced back. And so I'm standing on the shotgun, And I'm trying to plead with my informant to talk this guy down because he knows him. We finally got him talked down and yanked the gun out of his mouth. The dude's bleeding all over my connect's apartment, and goes over and starts washing his mouth out in the sink. And I'm thinking, man, I've screwed this deal up so bad. And are we going to all get murdered in here? Because of this
Well, there's many stories just like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yes.
Where it ends like that for sure.
Well,
you know,
this was ended up being street cred for me because I think my guy was like, man, T, I'll ding you in the morning. You know, we ended up pushing the deal, and I went back by myself, obviously. But you know, those are the things that you kind of prepare yourself for a little bit. You know, I'm always carrying. I don't let people search me. I'm not going to show them my ID and all the goofy stuff that people do. Yeah. But the one thing that I wasn't prepared for was at one point. Went into a little shotgun house, went in, they locked the door behind me, and you walk in, you've got the couch on one side, a little coffee table here, a big screen TV, practically nothing else but a gun and a scale with the dope we're about to cut up and work out. Uh-huh. And I stand in front of the TV and I hear a familiar voice, and it's that freaking episode that you're talking about on Cops. Because back then when I was doing this deal, they had 3 channels. This isn't no 3,500 channel scenario. These fools are watching Cops in prison all the time because it's on all the time. And Fort Worth Fort Worth had a healthy dose.
Oh, they did.
So that's one of the reasons I was totally unprepared.
Yeah, it was one of the reasons that it kind of put it on the spotlight for me. That's why I went down there. I recognized a couple of the guys that were cops that were on Cops. You know, and I thought that was kind of cool, but I could see, and I know what you're talking about, the big screen TV that's like, I think it was like a 60 or 70 inch TV, super wide, super heavy, and about 2 feet away from the couch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then nothing else.
Which was probably
apartment.
Which was probably from Rent-A-Center, and it got reported stolen, you know?
Yeah. And it wasn't in the name of the person that lived there.
No. So anyway, man, that's, I mean, I can relate to an extent. I mean, I didn't have one of those moments, but my gosh, I've had some close, scary situations for sure. So from there, you guys developed this, the feds ultimately end up getting involved in this. Did you go to the feds, or was it just one of those deals where it was getting bigger than what you guys could really deal with money wise? Because that's usually a good spot to go with the money.
Yeah, it is the money. And so my sergeant suggested that we shop feds, and I went to the DEA first, obviously, and they were like, cool, this sounds like a great case, we'll take it. And I'm like, well, no, I started this thing. I was already almost 8 months in when we started shopping. So I didn't want somebody to take it over and just go finish it. I mean, I wanted to finish it. I just wanted them to fund it, so I found an FBI agent who was there doing a gang, organized crime and gang violent task force through our gang unit, which is when I technically transferred to them so that I could be assigned to the FBI. And they assigned me to the FBI at that point under this single agent who then funded, different cars. And, if instead of buying samples and saying, hey, I'll talk to you about this or that, I could actually buy a key or buy up whatever I needed to buy. So that essentially brought me to the next level because there's only so long that I can be showing my face around there buying samples.
Yeah, right. They want to see something. And so from there, you pulled the plug on this thing eventually, and you end up making arrests on, was it 51 people?
Yeah, 51 went. Yeah, 10 went state and 41 went federal.
Which is a massive undertaking. That's huge. I mean, and did you get convictions on all of these 51?
Yes, all of them got convictions. We have a life plus 30, 60 years. The vast majority of them were around 20 years because of the conspiracy and, all of the, eventually people started talking, they start interviewing you and you're talking about doing Fed time. We're no longer interested in talking about, JoJo's dope house, so right. They started giving up murders and we had 9 cold case murders that they were given information on that we go back and investigate. And then now we're talking, but of course then they are telling on one another and how they got it and who they got it from and all that kind of stuff and kind of connecting some of the dots that we needed connected. And in order to get downward departures in the federal system, you've got to comply or cooperate rather. So the folks that did cooperate got what they, got cuts in their time. And there were 4 of them that actually testified on their character, on their behalf, in order to keep their time low. Cause I didn't have a lot of control over that. Once it's turned over to the AUSA and they give it to a federal judge, there were certain guys in there that I thought, man, I really don't want this cat to do a ton of time, but he's looking at a ton of time. So I actually testified on a few of their behalf. And they only had 4 trials that the rest of them just pled or, told us to go to hell and then got stuck. So.
And I think that's one of the things that I like about you, Tegan, is that you're one of those cops, at least the way I see it. And from what I've heard you talk about it, is that you're one of those police officers that you weren't out to just hammer people. You were out to do the right thing. And I think that you have you testified, at least in part, as to some of these guys as maybe being on the right path and giving them another chance and things like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I did. Yeah, I saw potential in some of these folks, and I wanted the judge to know that I the one that's put them in this position in the first place, or they put themselves in this situation, but secondarily, I certainly did. Right. That they deserved an opportunity. I just didn't want them to look at something so significant that they didn't have a chance to grow up and recover from something like this.
Good. So you decide to make and I think that's admirable. I really do. And that's what I've tried to base my career on just treating people right, and if you can, I mean, sometimes I work out stuff all the time with these guys, guys and gals, sometimes when we can, you decide to write a book. And I know that wasn't something that was on your radar at the time of this incident when you were doing all this jazz. How did that come about?
Well, for the most part, people were just clamoring to get me to do it. At first, when this case ended, I was the undercover, so nobody still really knew anything about me. I mean, the bad guys did, but when it came to the public, the FBI were doing press conferences, and the lieutenants and sergeants of the gang unit and all this kind of stuff. So I wasn't part of the celebratory tour, which is fine because that's what I did. But right. Eventually it did come out, and an article hit, and a couple of guys nominated me for an Officer of the Year type thing. So it ended up coming out. And once that did, forgive me, what was your question again?
My question was, no, that's good. I do that too. It's basically, at what point did you said that there were some guys that were encouraging you maybe to write a book, and that's how this kind of came about. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't do it it wasn't a glorifying type of thing. It was a human event that was traumatic. It was exciting. It was intense. It wore me clean out. It challenged my relationships, and it ended up putting people in prison that I felt terrible for seeing go. Not that they didn't deserve it, but I was just trepidated about certain people having to go down. So once I got introduced to someone who showed me a charity that was taking place not inside, but within the territory that I worked, within the CRIP arena there, where all these families had been hit. Because we ended up arresting 51 people, but 104 kids ended up being then fatherless. And this particular charity mentors children of incarcerated parents, and they serve the exact same hood. So it was important to me to make sure that part of the solution plugged in, because to me it ended, and I had such a weird emotional response of the fact that it was over. I was half accomplished and half depressed and half anxious about what I'm supposed to do. When I saw this charity and the work that they're doing with the kids, who essentially were going to be kids that came from these gang members who are being murdered or going away for significant time, if not forever, that's really the second part. I get people asking about, it's a human trafficking thing. You can't just go in, bust down the door, and pull the poor victims out of there and then cut them loose and say, good luck. There has to be another part of the equation. And the same with this cycle of violence that happens in these poor neighborhoods. And so that's exactly what they do. They mentor these children. They teach them how to look people in the eye and handshake. They teach them how to write checks. They teach them how to keep their grades up. They teach them how to, make their conduct go up. They involve their mothers in the process. And so that is what inspired me to write a book. And then, because I thought, first of all, coming from the music industry, I know all these creatives don't make a lot of money. So I wouldn't write a book in order to get rich anyway, because most people that write books, the vast majority, don't make hardly much. So I thought, well, we might be able to make something if people are inspired to buy and read this thing and potentially spread this information about how this cycle works and ultimately donate money back to this charity. So that's what we do. We donate all the profits of the book to charities that mentor children of incarcerated parents. In particular, we started with one that was there in Fort Worth in the hood, which is called Hope Farm. And it's been, that experience has been magnificent. And it's made me feel so much more accomplished only because I'm linking their work to the things that I did in the past. So it's not necessarily giving myself credit at all. It's really just pouring into the things that they're already doing. It's all their hard work that's really accomplishing all those things.
Well, not to mention it's a good book. And I want to reiterate that all of the proceeds go to this program. All of it. So if you buy this book, it's going to an exceptionally good cause, and I hope that some of you consider taking a look at maybe buying this book. It is a good book, and it's very interesting, and I have it because he gave me a signed copy, and I love it. So that's one of those things. And I'll tell you something too, Tegan, is that I had a guest on here a few weeks ago, one of the wardens from Kentucky. He used to be a warden there, and his book went from number 9 to number 3 after being on the show. So he was pretty happy about it. So, yeah. Well, I want to thank my loyal people that are in the house right now, because without you, that's not happening. So people actually did take it. They took a chance on it, and they've bought his book apparently because it went up the charts, and he was super happy. I would like to see the same thing happen with this book.
Oh, that would be magnificent. Again, I always say, hey, I think you'll like it. I spent as many years doing that as I did, working on the operation. But it goes to a fantastic cause. Yeah. And it's a great Christmas gift, right? And I think before Christmas, I just finished recording the audio version. So it should be out on Amazon in an audiobook form within the next probably 7 to 10 days. So we'll awesome. See about that too.
I love it. So for them to catch that, where would they need to go to? I guess it's through Amazon, right? That's how they would get the audio version. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's awesome. And so I want to mention a couple of other things so we don't run out of time on it, but I want to, you have a podcast also, and if you wanted to find the one that he and I did together, it's the TCast. It's the TCast podcast, and you can just type that in or type in his name and Detective Jason White, and that'll pop up. But there it is.
Yeah, Uncommon Souls. Yeah, Uncommon Souls is the YouTube channel.
And actually, on top of that, he actually had another First 48 detective that was on there, Jermaine Rogers, who's also I'm a big fan of his too. He's a good guy. He came on this show as well. So, but yeah, he did. He was great. I mean, I do too. He's good people. His brother just got out of prison actually, so he's pretty excited about that. And that's good. That's good for all of them. And then so you do this podcast, Uncommon Souls, which by the way I love it. I mean, you've got some tremendous guests that are on there. He's got one heck of a following. And what prompted you to do this? Because you really touch upon some issues that a lot of people, I think they're great. I mean, you're talking about racism, and you're talking about police corruption, and you talk about things like this and things that need to be talked about. And so what got you going on that?
I think it's really just getting the message out about, it's born of the Fishbowl experience and learning about people and realizing that, outside of just knowing that different cultures need to get along, I think everyone is in a general agreement that criminals need to be kicked in the butt. And these criminals that I dealt with and gangbangers were very much like all the rest of us as well. They just, they had one thing go wrong or were in an environment that was inescapable. There's just so many things in common, and you see the divisiveness in our society today, and where most of us are not up screaming and trying to get on the TV and, raising our fist in the air and saying all this extremist crap. So my goal was really to get people on the show who have either a unique disposition, an incredible story, or just somebody that when you see them, you think, wow, if I wasn't already tuned into this channel, there's no way I would listen to what this person had to say. And we just try to have interesting conversations to where, like you said, we've got, a guy that was imprisoned for 13 years on a life sentence for a murder that he didn't commit. And he got completely screwed and hammered by the Dallas Police Department. And we've got the Fort Worth Chief of Police. We talk to police officers. We've got musicians from all walks. We've got, just kind of runs the gambit. And really, it's just about us humans that are in the middle that really need to commune more and learn more about other people, different cultures, and appreciate the similarities that we all have.
I love it, man. I do. And then the other thing is that you've got a business that you've just started. It's a security business, right?
Yeah, I actually started that one. I'm on 17. It started in 2008. I quit the police department and started a company from scratch about 4 months before the stock market crashed in 2008.
Okay.
So that's about how long we've been in business. So we do have the security protection business that's going and thriving perfectly fine. I just started the creative business in 2020, which encompasses, again, the podcast and some music that I'm writing and some different little creative projects, all of it based around the same type of thing, just ways to bring people together from different things, whether it's books or music or podcasts or whatever. It's all just trying to get a community of good people together, which was, when I had you on, I was the one honored, man, because I think the work that you do is remarkable. And even though you make it sound like, it's just the way I am, it has to be appreciated, because I think every day we see these police departments struggling more and more and more, trying to keep good people in there with a hard work ethic, with empathy, and some degree of caring about what happens to the people that they're dealing with. And I think, man, you're leading the charge. So I'm super proud to have you as a friend. I appreciate what you do, for sure.
Man, I'm honored, and thank you for that. That's very nice of you to say. One of the viewers actually put in there that they asked if, and I think you might have seen it, but are you concerned with any retaliation because of so many people getting arrested? And are you concerned about your safety ever?
Always. Is the answer. The death threats that we got were in the beginning from mostly family members, and we took significant precautions during that time. Now they've started to trickle out. Several of them are already out. Some are doing wonderfully, which is great to hear. Some are back out banging and loud-mouthing around town, and I just try not to poke the bear and lean on the fact that, when this story comes out, if they do any research at all, they'll know that it wasn't personal. I was just doing my job. And ultimately, their kids in their community are benefiting from the sacrifices that they ultimately made by having to go to prison. But all the time, we do have some scares that come out where we're still having to deal with drama. It's just kind of part of the deal. It was other than looking like this and infiltrating Crips, the second most unique part about going deep undercover for 18 months, it was the fact that I did it in my own city. I mean, you go to the mall on the weekend and you see people that you're working around. So you got to pretend like you're just walking near your wife, but you're not with anybody, and go hit. So I still live in the same city. So yes, it's kind of jacked up.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I had a guy come in to appraise my roof years and years ago. It was back in 2011. And he shows up to look at my roof, and he goes, "Hey man, you ran a search warrant on my house and you arrested me." And I was like, "What? I'm not even a cop. What are you talking about, dude?" He goes, no, it was you. And I was like, "No, it wasn't me." And he's like, "No, it was you." He goes, "Don't worry, man, you were cool." And actually, by you doing that, you actually saved my life, and you treated me really, really fairly. And I want to thank you for doing your thing, and the way you treated me was really with respect. And that's what I think. You're the same kind of guy. We're not out trying. It's never personal. You never want to make it personal, because these guys will shoot your house up for nothing, so you never want to make it to that like that, And so, so I've had some of those moments too.
That's a great story. I love it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I had a deal real quick. I'll just mention this. So I was dating my wife. We weren't married yet, and I just started dating her, and I happened to take the night off. I went on this little thing where we played. We got a tip. I could care less about this kind of stuff, but we got a tip about gambling at a place with slot machines in the back room or whatever. And if you won, then you come back, you get a receipt, and then you come back the next day. So I happened to take off, and I told my partner, I said, hey, I'm going to run over there. I'm going to get my money. I happen to win. You know why I won? Because it wasn't my money. And so I win like $120 or something like that, or maybe 150, which was a big deal. And so I went over there. I told my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I said, hey, let's run by this bar real quick. It's a really cool bar. And it was actually a really cool bar. And I said, I need to go get this money. And so I called my partner. He goes, hey, man, are you going to be okay over there? And I'm like, yeah, man, it's no big deal. They were cool. So I get over there. And then I noticed these two dudes walking up to the table. Actually, I told the waitress, I gave my ticket to the waitress, and okay, well, hang on. And I'm sitting there for like 30 minutes. I'm like, what in the heck is going on? And actually, let me rewind. The night when we won the money, there was me and my partner were sitting at the bar, and there was a cop, a sheriff sitting down the bar at the other end. And he goes, hey, man, he was always paranoid. He's like, hey, man, I noticed that guy. That guy's like a bailiff in the courthouse. He's a cop. Should we say that we're in here working? I'm like, nah, don't tell him anything, man. Who cares? Well, we can't go have a drink. And so he goes, and then the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, you better tell him. And so he did. The problem is that this cat probably called the bar to tell him that we were cops. So what happened after that is I got invited out to the back parking lot by myself. I'm alone on this. My girlfriend's at the table. Oh, I know, dude. You already know how this is going. And I'm getting accused of being a cop. And it was scary. I'm out there with a couple of freaking goons with this guy. And I just convinced him that I wasn't a cop. You know, you got to be quick on your feet doing that undercover stuff. You know it, man. I mean, you have to be quick. Your life could depend upon it. So,
you've got the gift of gab. That's good. Because otherwise you got to be quick with it, stabbing him in the neck or something and running like crazy.
Well,
that's a bad scenario.
But so you doing all that, and this real quick, they're considering making your book into like a television series or what is it, like a mini series, or are they wanting to do it like an actual show? And it's consideration at this point, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it is. You know, I take it with a grain of salt because it really needs to be told. It's not a Batman story. It's not a superhero story at all. It's very human. There was lots of mistakes that I made. There's lots of personalities and interesting things about people to learn. It's tragic at the same time. But yeah, they've transitioned now from movie to series because it would be important to me if it gets made to tell stories of some of these other characters. I can almost envision it being something where one episode is my perspective in doing a particular scene, and then the second is the same exact scene from someone else's perspective. It's almost like The Wire. You know, by the time you get done watching The Wire, you're not sure who you're rooting for. You kind of like some of the bad guys. You sort of want them to be able to skate, but you know they're supposed to go to jail. You know, because that's how I felt. I was the cop, and I was like, man, if I could go through and say, man, I'm gonna let you skate. You're cool, man. You gotta go away forever because you scare me to death and whatever. You know, you just can't do that. So that's the way I'd like it to come out.
Yeah, if you haven't watched The Wire, you need to check it out to my viewers because it's actually it's pretty epic. It is close in a lot of respects, and it talks about how the dysfunction junction of Baltimore, and there's probably a lot of truth to that. Actually, I don't want to offend anybody in the Baltimore area because we got people that listen from all over, but I think they know what's up there. You know, that's coming from
like saying, "Yep."
Yeah, right. So what else? I mean, you're an entrepreneur, man. Well, that's what I love, man. I'm actually inspired by you. You're one of the people that came to mind when I actually had this opportunity because I told you back then. You asked me what my plans were for the future, and I said, well, actually, I'd like to. I said, actually, I'd like to do what you were doing, which was doing, you know, his podcast it's a real production, man. I mean, it's really professionally done, and he's got a studio, and it looks it's epic. I'm wanting people to check it out because I think that you'll really get something from it. And so anyway, what's next for you? I mean, because you're always looking for stuff to move your life that's the way I see it. You're looking to make a difference. And I think that's really inspiring.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I am trying to continue to build the audience. I'm a social media moron, but I know that's kind of part of the deal. While I'm out here in LA, I just finished a stellar collaboration with the bass player for the Who, and
Nice.
so I wrote this tune. He's an old bandmate of mine, so I don't want to make it sound like they came to me or anything, but I wrote a tune and got him involved. Got a gospel singer in on it. So these types of things. Again, the music's the same thing. It's it's inspiring some or provoking some thought. In people who are experiencing what we all experience, the craziness of each day. So I'm trying to do that, and I'm also trying to support my wife Holly, who's out here taking it on a second career, also as a professional makeup artist. So she's an amazing person and inspires me to do a lot of these good deeds because she's just the kindest person there is. So
she is a great
between
person.
running the business that we have and she's we've been running the business for the last 3.5 months remotely, which has been a real experience because there's a lot of stuff to do out there, and it's important that we keep in touch. But we have some great leadership and a great crew of people down there. So we've been allowed to come out here and invest some time to trying to push ourselves forward. I just always think it's about growth, and absolutely it's about figuring out ways that you can contribute outside of yourself. Once you unlock that, I think a lot of us do when we get old. So part of my goal is to go, I've been speaking at some schools and some different little organizations, but I would just love to get through to people earlier, because if I had changed my perspective about how great my life could be, if I started focusing on career moves and significant activities that I could do that are at the behest of other people in order to help them along and make them better, it would be, I mean, you're obviously your 20s still trying to figure out what the hell you can actually offer. But, beyond that, it takes people a long time. Some people just never get it at all, but I'm just always looking for opportunities.
You do speak, you do inspirational speaking. You do some inspirational stuff as well. You do some other, is that right? Like
I try to. Yeah. I'm mixed or anxious. I won't eat that whole day, but I do. I speak because I feel like it's a significant way to push the message forward, which again is not about me. It's about, pushing the book or the story or the, getting more people on board to be a part of the community that wants to give back, and meet it in the middle and have these important conversations. That's all.
Absolutely. We got like 30 seconds left. I want to thank everybody for stopping in here and joining us. Without you, we don't have a show. I mean, it's just not that the guests want to, they want to get hits too. They want to put their message out there. So I can't thank everybody that joins us week in and week out. You guys are freaking, you're like my OG crew that comes in here, and seriously, man, we can't do this without you. I want to thank you very much. If you're looking for a speaker, consider Tegan. He's somebody that I'm sure that could bring something to the table, maybe to whatever, if you're just looking for that person that might be able to come and speak at your conference or something, he might be a really good option for you. And get his book. I mean, it's for a great cause, and you're going to walk away smarter than you were when you opened the book. You will be smarter by the end of that book, I promise you. And not only that, but you're going to get you'll be entertained by it. It's a good book. I wouldn't recommend it if it wasn't, because I am not an avid reader, and it's not easy for me to sit down and read a book, but his book is actually readable and entertaining. And that's coming from a cop reading about another cop. So it was very, very good. Tegan, I appreciate you, buddy. I really do, man. You're my friend.
Thank you, brother.
You're going to be you're my friend for life. You really are, and I mean that. If you ever need anything, you reach out, and I'm there for you. And I wish you nothing.
That means a lot.
I wish you nothing but the world of success. I really do, man. You're an inspiration to me. You really are. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to get off of here. We've hit the wall. We've got to get off of here. Next week, I tell Holly, thank you also for letting us borrow you for the evening. And we've hit the wall. See ya, Holly. And then we'll be in touch. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Take us out, Amanda.